everyone. This is Anders. I'm joined here by Todd Labellman. Todd Labellman is one of our advisors here at Anders Retirement and Investment Advisors. He does retirement planning, he does investment advising. But on top of that, what makes Todd unique is he also does Medicare. And Todd spends almost every day talking to people in the FRS or in DROP, and he's helped a lot of people exiting DROP with Medicare. So I wanted to bring him in, kind of ask some questions, go over Medicare specifically for people exiting from FRS DROP. So first off, Todd, thank you for your time and joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Don.
Yeah, of course. So a couple questions I want to get into. Number one, and I want to go from kind of basic to a little bit more advanced, right? So if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, this is very basic information, we'll get a little bit more. So let's just start off very simply with Medicare. When are you eligible for it? Because believe it or not, some people are confused. They're like, okay, well, is it 62 or 67? They confuse it with Social Security. So when are you eligible to go from maybe your employer insurance or outside insurance to go onto Medicare?
Sure. So normal Medicare eligibility is at age 65. And you can enroll in Medicare's Parts A and B up to 3 months before the month you turn 65. There's Medicare eligibility through disability. If you are receiving Social Security disability at 24 months of receiving that, you are eligible also for Medicare Parts A and B. But that's a separate discussion and a more limited demographic.
So for most people watching this, 65 is kind of the magical age. Now, what happens if they're exiting at 67, right? Because I know at 65, and correct me if I'm wrong, at 65, people can go in without any kind of health questionnaire, right? There's no qualifications, anything else.
Correct. That's right. You have an automatic enrollment into, well, we can get to the Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage side, but with Medicare Supplement preferred rates, there's no penalty at 65, and you automatically enroll. That's right.
Okay, so you can automatically enroll. Doesn't matter if you're very sick. They have to accept you in any of the plans.
Correct. That's right.
Okay. Now that's if you are, let's say you retire at 62 and then 65, you want to switch over and go that route. How about, let's say I go into DROP at 62 and I stay for 5 years and I'm leaving at 67.
So if that happens, you'll have to do a couple of things. You'll also have an automatic enrollment at preferred rates and with no penalty in either Medicare's Part A and B or any of the, and D as well, and we'll get into some of that here in a minute, or any of the plans. The difference is you'll need 2 forms. Most likely you will have already, and people should enroll in Medicare Part A, okay, up to 3 months before they turn 65, and that's free. Is
there any reason not to enroll Medicare Part A 3 months?
No, there's not. No reason.
It doesn't cost anything, right?
It doesn't, as long as you have enough work credits, and anybody listening to this that's been in the FRS and is about to retire is going to have the necessary work credits to get. In fact, in nine years, I've never run into anybody who hasn't since I've been doing this, but there's always an exception. But no, you're going to be able to enroll in Medicare Part A for free, and you should do so the three months before you turn 65, and you'll do
even
so
if you're still working.
Even if you're still working, that's right. But let's assume that you've done that when you turn 65, and now you're 67 and about to separate from service. You haven't needed Medicare because you've been on your employer's insurance these last 2 years. What you'll need are 2 forms. You'll need your Medicare Part B enrollment form, and then you'll need your employment form, which your employer signs off on, and that's verifying with the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services that you've had credible coverage since you've turned 65, and that way you're not penalized for late enrollment penalty in Parts B, which is your doctor's coverage, Medicare Part B, and Part D, if you decide to take that, which is your prescription drug coverage. As long as you have that employment form, you're not penalized for late enrollment, if you've had credible coverage with your employer.
Okay, so you submit those forms, and then you don't have to. But you do have a questionnaire if it's after 65, correct? For certain plans.
If you haven't had credible coverage with an employer, then yes, there will be an underwriting questionnaire involved
But is the employer plan always credible coverage?
It pretty much. I have yet to see a state-run or county-run employment plan that is not credible.
Okay. So it should be credible. So at that point they can switch over to Medicare. Is there any reason that somebody shouldn't switch to a Medicare? And I know if you can't get into it too much, and for those of you watching, just so you know, there's a lot of things that we can and cannot say about Medicare on any kind of what this is considered marketing, even though it's an educational video. But so is there any reason that you've seen that people shouldn't switch from, say, their employer plan over to a Medicare coverage?
The only reason I see is when your spouse is on your employment coverage. In other words, you've turned 65, let's say you're 67, like our previous example, you're separating from service now, but your spouse is 62. And maybe they have a health condition and or you have relatively high income. So if you went into the marketplace to buy health insurance, it would be very expensive. And unfortunately, those plans aren't the best at times. We'll put it that way. So in that case, you would need, until your spouse turns 65, you would need to stand your employer plan. Granted, it will be expensive, but at least you know you're getting good coverage until your spouse does turn 65. But that's really the only exception that I've seen.
Okay. Do you still, we've answered this before, but you still get your health insurance subsidy, no matter who you're insured through. If you watch our other video, you get that. So you get your health insurance subsidy. Sometimes people think that they have to stay with their employer plan to get the health insurance subsidy. That is not true. As long as you could just have Medicare Part A and you would get your health insurance subsidy.
Right.
So that's good. Okay. So let's say they're either turning 65 after they've separated, or they're going to separate at 65 or older. They can go in, there's no pre-existing health checks or anything else. Okay. So then at that point, they had Medicare A, they had Medicare B. And then they want to pick up they need to pick up either a supplement or an advantage plan, correct?
That's correct.
So can you tell us let's start with the advantage plan. So the advantage plan, tell us a little bit about the way those work.
Sure. So I'll just go back real quickly, Don, to what you said. You will need to pick up a plan, because your Medicare A and B, it's somewhat similar to an old 80-20 plan that you don't see much anymore, where the insurance company's on the hook for 80% and you have to pay the other 20%. But there are also more costs than that involved with just Medicare A and B. Your prescription drugs aren't covered. And also there are some deductibles with hospital stays, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have to get into all the details, but basically it can get very expensive. So at that point you have to choose either, like you mentioned, either the Medicare Advantage side, which in Florida will include prescription drug coverage, or the Medicare supplement side, which will not include prescription drug coverage. So that's kind of your fork in the road, I like to call it. Okay.
And it doesn't, from what I understand about Medicare, it doesn't make, because some people are like, well, I don't want to pay anything extra. Well, you should at least do an advantage plan, because there's some advantage plans that don't cost anything, right?
Many of them do not. That's correct. Without getting into details with specific carriers, you have many advantage plans have no monthly premium. That's right.
Okay. So it doesn't make sense, right? You at least should go that route. It doesn't make sense just to do A and B, because if a company is going to give you extra coverage without a cost, why not, right?
Correct. There are just too many gaps in that traditional, in my opinion, in that traditional Medicare A and B coverage, like I mentioned. There are too many potential cost gaps, and God forbid you have a hospital stay. You could, you're in there for a week. That could be, that'll be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on what procedures are done. And with Medicare A and B alone, you're going to be on the hook for a lot of that. So,
and I tell people all the time, when you're in drop, you're one of the most popular people in the world. Everyone wants to talk to you, right? When you're turning 65, you're one of the most popular people in the world. And then if you're both, you're getting hounded from all aspects, from Medicare people, for people trying to drop. So somebody might say, well, if I'm going with an advantage plan, I'm just going to go with the person I run into, or what my brother-in-law did, or something else. But from what I know about advantage plans, that's probably when you really want to shop it around to see, because every company is so different. Is that correct?
That is correct. And then you get into the difference with even within the Advantage plan world, they're just like with employer coverage or outside coverage, there are HMOs and there are PPOs. And so you want to make sure your doctors are in network. You want to check the Advantage plans have what they call maximum out of pocket costs. We want to check those, what those levels are for the different plans. There are a lot of variables involved. You don't want to just jump into the first plan with, Joe Smith down the street that sells them. You want to use somebody like ourselves that's independent, and we can run your doctors and medications through all these different plans to see the best fit for you.
Yeah, and it's kind of like what I recommend for finances, right? If you go in and you talk to somebody and the only thing they offer is what's on their card,
right?
That might be a red flag. I mean, it might be really good, but it also might mean that they can only offer that one company, which there could be someone better out there. And I think just like your drop rollover, choosing your Medicare insurance, supplement insurance, or Advantage insurance is very important, and it's something that you should take the time to do. And there's I know it depends on the county, right? But there can be dozens or more of different plans, even more than that.
A lot, yeah. So between all the carriers, I don't even know. I couldn't number. I probably, yeah. So it's all done, like you said, it's all done by really region. It all runs through your zip code. When you put a zip code into the system, or when we do that for clients, or even on Medicare.gov, if you do that, it'll give you a list of dozens and heck, probably even hundreds of plans for some areas. So it's all done by region, and obviously coverage levels, maximum out of pocket. Different variables will change depending on where you are, but yes, you'll have a choice of at least dozens of plans typically.
Okay, so and the Advantage plan, from the way I've gathered it, is that's for somebody who they either can't afford or don't want to spend a bunch of money extra for insurance costs. So that's for more people who maybe they're on a budget. Maybe they don't want to pay much extra. There's also a few exceptions, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if you live in very specific neighborhoods, like the villages, right, and all of your doctors are in the villages, and you don't travel outside the villages, their plan's good because they kind of cover everything inside of there.
Sure.
But where the Advantage plan can kind of fall short is if you need to go outside of your network for specialists, or if you travel, or if you end up getting sick, and every single year you're hitting those maximum out of pockets, that's where it kind of falls short. Is that correct?
That's right. I would agree. I would agree with that, Don. You hit the nail on the head.
Okay, so for those of you who are looking to not pay a lot for insurance coverage right up front, that's probably the way to go. But I will say, for eventually everyone gets sick, right? Everyone, health fails eventually. So eventually you're going to be paying more for an Advantage plan than a supplement plan. Now, let's go over and talk about the supplement plans, which from what I know about them, I like the supplement plans. They're not for everyone if you can't afford them, but if you can, they have typically better coverage. Is that correct?
It is. So the supplement plans allow you, they are, like you mentioned, they are more expensive. You will be paying a monthly premium with those. But the real beauty of the supplement plan is there are no networks involved. You can go see any doctor in the country that takes Medicare.
And that's the biggest issue or the biggest misconception I've seen, because a lot of times people will say, I'll talk to them and say, well, let's, go, if you're getting a supplement plan, they're like, oh yeah, well, I was looking at this certain company, and they go, company X. Let's say I was looking at that company, but my doctors don't accept that company. But if you're going with the supplement plan, that doesn't matter, correct? All that matters is that they accept Medicare.
That's correct. And your supplement plan will come in and it'll fill that other 20% gap I was talking about. That's right, no matter what.
Okay. So really your insurer is not the supplement company in that situation. It's Medicare, and then Medicare just bills the supplement company. Is that correct?
That's right. And that's why you will hear Medicare supplement policies being referred to as Medigap policies, because they're covering that 20% gap I was talking about that Medicare's A and B don't cover.
So even if their doctor doesn't accept X carrier, they will accept, if they do accept Medicare, if you have a supplement plan, you're covered. Also, so is there any So why does it, if that's the case, is there differences between different carriers, or do they all have to be the same if it's a supplement plan?
So for the type of supplement plan, and those all go by letters, A through N. And in Florida, you don't see all those letters. We don't need to get into that. But the differences are really, you look at two things when you price a supplement plan, or when you buy a supplement plan. Price obviously is big. So the coverage is standardized. If you pick I always tell clients a G plan, which is in my opinion the best. It's the most comprehensive of the supplement plans.
That was going to be my next question. So you covered it.
Okay, yeah. So and full and fair disclosure, I would say 90% of the plans that I do with clients are G plans. So, okay. But I always tell them a G plan is a G plan is a G plan. The benefits are standardized, okay, by the federal government. So you cannot, if I were an insurance carrier, I can't sell a G plan that has different coverages or benefits than the other. No, they're all the same. So you look at two things. Obviously, you look at price, but you also look at years in market, and people don't realize that. I mean, price obviously will typically come first, but if somebody has entered the market last year or this year is their first year in the market in Florida, and they've lowballed everybody, and they're $20 a month cheaper than everybody else. Great. Well, it's not so great if next year they raise their rates by $40 a month. So I like to look at companies that have a stable price record of at least 7-10 years minimum, and a lot of our carriers have quite a bit longer than that in Florida. So those are the two factors. You've got price and years in the market when you price a Medicare supplement plan, but benefits are standardized.
And then if you get a supplement plan, like you said, the Advantage plan in the state of Florida has to include medicine. A supplement plan does not, correct?
Prescription drug coverage, correct. Well, I don't think that technically, Don, and we're getting in the weeds a little bit here, that the Medicare Advantage plans have to have drug coverage in the state of Florida, but nearly all do.
They usually do.
They usually do. Oh yeah, 90, we're getting in the 90-something percentile. But yeah, so normally you'll run into Medicare Advantage plans in Florida, almost always, that have your prescription drug coverage included. Medicare Supplement, on the other hand, 100% of the time does not have prescription drug coverage included. So you will also have to pick up a Part D as in David prescription drug plan.
Okay. And a Part D prescription drug plan, that's from that. So the supplement plan is, you said Plan G is standardized. It is what it is. It's the same coverage, but not a drug plan, correct? Not a Part D.
You're right. They're all very different, and it's very carrier specific, kind of similar to Medicare Advantage, how we talked about. We need to look at all the benefits and the breakdown. Same with Medicare Part D prescription drug coverage, okay? So when you look at a Part D plan, again, you're looking at obviously price, but that price is based off of your specific medications. And what we do for clients is we run that through a list, or we run your list, I should say, through a database, and it will give us the plans that are going to be best, basically least expensive for you at the pharmacies you like to fill your drugs at. Okay. So that's how we do that.
So let's say I talk to you, Todd, and I go, you know what? I don't really take any medicine, so I'm just not going to get a Part D plan.
Bad idea.
Okay. And so I know that, and I'm just kind of setting you up. So why is that a bad idea? If I don't take any medicine at all, why should I go on a Medicare Part D plan? Sure.
It's a bad idea for a couple of reasons. Number one, who knows if tomorrow you won't start taking medication, right? But also, if you don't have credible drug coverage and you've turned 65 and you want to pick up a Part D prescription drug plan in the future, you will be penalized for not having one after you've turned 65. Again, your employer plan should be credible for your drug coverage as it is for your health coverage. But once you separate, you want to make sure you either have your drug coverage through Medicare Advantage or through a Part D prescription drug plan to go along with your Medicare supplement plan.
Is it 1% for every month you don't have it, correct?
Correct. That's right.
Okay. So if you don't have it for 3 years, it'll be 36% more expensive than it is if you get it right away.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a permanent penalty. It doesn't go away. So
okay. So that's good to know. And there are some pretty, if you're in the situation of you don't take any medicine at all, there are some pretty cheap plans you can go with, from what I understood. And then you can always switch your Medicare your Part D plan every open enrollment period if your medicines change.
That's right. That's right. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I don't want to muddy the waters here. I know there's a lot of moving parts to all this, and that's why it's nice to have somebody like us to work with. But that goes
that handles it. And the reason, for those of you who are sitting here, maybe watching this video and you've been trying to research it yourself, and you say, well, this is all very confusing. You know why? Because it is.
It is.
Not easy. Yeah.
It's absurd how they've designed it. But
yeah.
This is the hand we're dealt.
Sorry, I interrupted you. So
okay.
Not to mind the bars anymore, but
yeah. So not to mind the bar. And so I was just saying, your prescription, like you mentioned, on your prescription drug coverage during open enrollment every year, you can change that, your Part D, and also your Medicare Advantage plan you can change every year. Your Medicare supplement, however, within that first year, you have a grace period of a year that you can change that plan, or Medicare supplement plan, without medical underwriting. However, after the first year, the only way you can change Medicare supplement is with medical underwriting. These insurance carriers will not accept you after the first year without medical underwriting. So if you are considering what I normally recommend to clients, and this is obviously a broad-based recommendation, but it holds true most of the time. If you are on the fence and considering, I'm not sure if I want to do Advantage or can afford it, or maybe I should do supplement. It has been, I like that flexibility. I'm not sure. I would recommend starting with a supplement, because you can always drop a supplement and return to and go to a Medicare Advantage plan, but you can't go the other way around after the first year without medical underwriting.
And from what I understand about a supplement plan, when you go in, you lock in at that age, correct?
That's right. That's right. You lock in at that age, and you lock in really with that carrier for life. Again, you have a year grace period, but very few people switch within that first year. So, and that's why I talked about that price record in the market of the different carriers. That's why that price record comes into play, because again, you don't want to go with somebody that's $20 or $30 cheaper this year, but they've only been in the market for a year or two. And then next year they raise their rates by $40 a month, and you're sitting here going, what the heck? That, you feel like you've been bamboozled, basically.
Okay, good to know. All that's great. And then with the supplement plan, so you lock in at and just so people know, when I say you lock in at a certain age, doesn't mean that your price is locked in forever. What that means is that you're always, let's say you go in at 65, you're always going to pay as a 65-year-old. So if you're 88 years old, you're going to pay the same rate as all the other 65-year-olds with that company, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so, and what you said, it's what they call a guaranteed renewable policy, meaning they cannot raise it on you individually. However, they will raise it on everybody as a 65-year-old, like you mentioned. Down the road, there's always going to be a small price increase pretty much every year. And normally it's not too much. Normally it's a few dollars per month every year that they raise it.
That's good to know. That's good to know. So if people have more questions, or if they have any, if you want to sit down and talk with Todd, I'm going to go ahead and link his calendar below. Feel free to sign up for a phone appointment and he can discuss it. Very simple process from what I understand. It's about 30 minutes, get all your information to the system, get you accurate quotes, and go from there. Anything else that you want people to know before we get off the call about Medicare and leaving kind of there, because it's a stressful time, right? You've been covered by your employer for 35 years.
That's right. It's a stressful time, and it's it's a convoluted system. So my only recommendation would be to work with somebody like us, an independent advisor and or Medicare agent that can work with all types of different carriers and get you the best plan for you. It's just like Don had mentioned with your retirement plan. All this needs to be individualized. This is not a blanket thing. So give us a call or set an appointment with us or somebody else that's knowledgeable, because it's really tough to do this on your own. I'll be honest with you. It's not easy.
Yeah, people might be thinking, well, yeah, of course you're saying to work with the independent agent because that's who you are. Yeah. No, we are that because we think that's the best thing for our clients. We know it's the best thing for our clients. So I agree. If it's not with us, someone else that just make sure that they're independent, make sure they can give you different options and shop it. It's a really important decision. And so, maybe even if you're not sure, ask them for different pricing options, see if they can give you different companies, and maybe get a second opinion if you're not sure. But either way, Todd's calendar is going to be in the link below. Feel free to click that. Todd, thank you so much for your time. I hope everyone got some good information about it, and we'll talk to everybody soon.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks everybody for watching.